Hello and welcome back. The phone number is 665-6278. Please mute your TV when calling in. We really want to hear from you. We really want to hear from you. We have with us Mr. Michael Harris. Mr. Harris, in the United Kingdom, there was a nationwide, when they tried to change the way that MPs are elected, there was a nationwide vote held, a referendum, so to say. And the question was whether they should replace the first past the post system with something known as an alternative vote. Mm-hmm. Needless to say, it was completely rejected by the electorate. They took it to the electorate, and in a country such as Britain, with hundreds and hundreds of years old, they took it to the people. It was the second referendum to be held in the country's history. But they said if we were going to change something as important and fundamental as the way we elect our MPs, the people to represent us, we were going to go to the people and hold a referendum. And so I bring this up because in reading the document, the report, I saw that they talked about constitutional reform and a referendum. And whilst they didn't advise the government whether to have one or not, they said that if there were to be one, there should be some distance between holding a referendum and the holding of a general election, because they didn't want the referendum to be treated as a political issue. Mm-hmm. The people of Trinidad and Tobago did not see a referendum, perhaps will never see a referendum. I wanted to ask you, what is your views on the referendum? What are your views on perhaps why they didn't even bother to entertain the thought, and yet that is something that was actually in the report, discussed in the report?
Well, two things. One, the government, in terms of the constitutional amendment bill that is in the parliament now, just past the House, clearly cherry-picked from the report of the Constitution Commission two items that they felt had great popularity in the country. And they put those items in the bill as a cover under which they can bring what they were really interested in and what was never in this report, the runoff proposal.
Sneak it in.
Sneak it in. Now, as far as that consultation is concerned, I think in your opening remarks you stated that it really never worked properly.
Yes.
And it didn't. I didn't certainly give it very little credence. And the problem is you cannot have a consultation on constitutional reform for the country headed by a member of your government.
Yes.
Right? You have to let people speak freely on what it is, bring all the things together. Secondly, constitution reform is about politics, right? And it is, I do not agree that you have to have a referendum and thing away from the political thing. It is politics. Whatever you put in your constitution will govern your politics. Therefore, it is about politics. And you have to deal with it in a political thing, which is why constitutional reform, as I told Mr. Ramada over and over again, is not a buffet.
Yes.
It's not a thing spread out that you pick things on. It is what is the issues that we are facing and what is the strategic intervention that we need to make to begin a chain reaction of change. And on that strategic intervention, you mount your platform, political, and get people to agree with you and say, give you a mandate for putting that through. But to come back to your issue, this government was not about to implement, because when you read the Constitution Commission's report, there's far more in it than these two provisions. And all they did was cherry pick these two out of it as a camouflage behind which, as you say, to sneak in this runoff thing. And all they were interested in from the start is this runoff thing, and now they have it, barring what happens in the Senate.
You've been quoted as saying, Mr. Harris, and I quote, "The bill has little to do with constitutional change and everything to do with the cynical manipulation of the people's aspirations for meaningful political change." We have a caller on the line, and I would like to come back to that.
Sure.
And if we give the caller. Good evening, caller.
Hello.
Hello there.
And good evening to your guest.
Good evening.
Yeah. Again, I want to congratulate you on a most edifying program. It is,
Thank you, sir.
to me, the most edifying of the programs that they have all over the place.
Thank you, sir.
Now, to the matter at hand.
Yes.
It is the first time I'm hearing the issue that Mr. Harris raised there with respect to the non-swearing in of a government.
The role of the president,
Yes.
the president not being able.
And if that is so, I mean, if a party wins a clear majority, I mean, by all means, that party should be sworn in as government and the runoffs held. The way the system is organized, you could have a situation of 19-19 and probably 3 runoffs and so. When you have no clear majority, then the incumbent, because remember what happened with your father's party in 2001, right?
Yes.
When there was the 1818 situation.
Yes.
So when that situation occurs, when there's no clear winner, then the incumbent should hold office until the runoff will clear the air.
Sure.
Right? So there seems to be some gray area there. I haven't read the bill myself, just depending on Mr. Harris's...
Absolutely, and I think he's the most qualified to answer
Right.
you. Thank
now,
you.
And
Thank you,
there's
caller,
one
for
other
that.
aspect
Sure.
that I do not agree with Mr. Harris, and that is when, of course, the PNM has said that the proportional representation is a dagger in the heart of the PNM. This also is the dagger in the heart of the PNM, because in the so-called marginal seats, this is where the runoffs will more than likely be held. And, I mean, history has shown that when it's a two-party race, the PNM is on the losing end, and the other party is on the winning end. So this also is a dagger in the heart of the PNM. Yes, it is also a dagger in the heart of all the smaller parties.
And the
But
people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, what we have to look at is the opportunity given to these parties to rise above, maybe not in the 2015 general elections, but to come up to scratch to compete. Because to me, really, all of the third and fourth parties that we have are of mere nuisance value when it comes to elections.
Oh,
Right?
I have to disagree with that caller. Thank you very much for your call. I would let Mr. Harris answer the first two questions, and then perhaps I can make a comment on the third. Mr. Harris?
The provisions of the bill are very clear that until all the runoffs are held and certified, the president is not allowed to appoint a new prime minister. So you can check it out for yourself, of course, so which is a very, as you agree, dangerous situation if, in fact, somebody has won clearly. As far as the dagger in the heart of the PNM, let me say that I am happy that the PNM has, in fact, opposed this bill, because the PNM also stands to gain from the runoff provision and the entrenchment of racial politics, right? And I am very happy that they oppose the bill. The problem, of course, is that the UNC has done it because the UNC considers that in such a two-way fight, they would have an advantage and the PNM would be a perpetual minority party. But you never know that there may be people in the PNM who would settle for that because they would always be at least in the corridors of power. So I am very happy that the PNM didn't agree with that. But the real dagger of this is in the heart, not of third parties necessarily, but of all those in the country who do not wish to continue with this system of racial politics and racial elections. You may be happy with those kinds of politics. I am not, and it is a dagger in my heart.
Agreed, agreed. And what we are saying, caller, is that there were also other options available, other options such as proportional representation that was discussed during the consultations that would really allow third parties, independent candidates to actually be represented in the parliament according to number of votes that they got. A third party and independents are not a waste of time. We have another call. Good evening, caller.
My call is to Mr. Harris.
Yes.
I have never voted UNC. I have never voted PNM. I am Indian. I am Hindu. I am proud to be. I have always voted for the third party because just as Mr. Harris has said, that is the bridge that we need to build and to expand. I admired Mr. Dukaran last night for his contribution.
So did I, yes.
I did say that in my contribution, that I was very pleased that he had voted against it, and on the grounds that he could not betray all the people who had voted for the COP and the future of the country. Because, and this is what I want to impress, that, and I compliment you, sir, but the thing is that we have been slowly over the years trying to fashion a way of a formula for getting away from this racial politics. And this bill will kill, and maybe 10, 15, 20 years, I may not be around to see it, we will have a national party that eliminates race as a thing, and then you could have real politics and performance of government and so on. As long as our politics and elections are based upon race, we will always have bad government. Yes. Understand that.
Absolutely.
So I compliment you, sir, and this bill is really dangerous for people such as you and I.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Yeah, these people wanted my subject. Yeah.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Please start again. Yes, sir. Sorry, caller. We lost you there. Please try and call again. Good evening, caller. Okay. It looks like we've lost that call. Please do call in. We want to hear your views, your suggestions, your opinions. I was saying, sir, that you, and it really hit a nerve with me, and I said, it could not have been said better. You've been quoted as saying, the bill has little to do with genuine constitutional change and everything to do with the cynical manipulation of the people's aspiration for meaningful political change. Could you explain that further for our viewers?
Okay, because, well, as I have been saying, I certainly believe that the vast majority of this population is looking for some system of politics and government that will bring them relief. Let's just put it as that. I mean, the truth is we have never had a good government. And we have never had a good government because we have never held our governments to account on the basis of performance. It is always on the basis of whether you represent in my tribe or not. And once that is the basis, how they perform doesn't come into play, right? Now, but there is nonetheless a huge element of this population that really is seeking something different. And some of them believe that term limits for prime ministers, some of them believe that recall and so on are things that we need to do to fix the politics. I do not believe that. They are useful, but will not fix our politics. As I said before when I was on this program with your dad, the fundamental issue in our politics and why it is a is the imbalance in the power between the executive and the people. And
Yes.
as long as that is not fixed, right? And it is not going to be fixed by cutting down the power of the executive, because I talked about the political power equation. The executive has this, the people have nothing.
Yes.
If you cut the executive in half, the people still have nothing, so that the executive still dominates the people. It can only be fixed by putting power in the hands of the people. And why the government cynically manipulated those legitimate aspirations was by saying these things put power in the hands of the people. They do not.
They do
Look at
not.
that recall provision. First of all, you can only do it in 12 months, between the third and the fourth year.
Yes.
And secondly, you need 2/3 people of the voters to
How are
approve.
you going to
Nobody
get
is
that?
even elected with 2/3 of the thing, but you can only throw them out with 2/3 of the
So
vote.
practically,
it is a
it's not going to
non-starter.
work.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going to work.
Right? And as far as the term limits for Prime Minister is concerned, again, the Prime Minister is an individual. Now, people support that a lot because nobody wants another Eric Williams spending 30 years in office.
Sure.
But at the same time, the power is not the problem. The problem is not the power of the Prime Minister. The problem is the power of the executive. And if you change the person who is in, he's still very powerful
He's
and
still
can
very
do what he
powerful.
wants.
I want to come back to that in a second, but I believe we have another caller. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller.
Now, I am particularly incensed by the recall provision because it suggests that in order to have someone recalled, you need to get more votes than maybe in the general election in which they were first came to office in the first place.
Absolutely correct,
It
sir.
is very difficult to get 66% of the electorate voting in any election in the Caribbean. A 50% or 55% electorate voting is a high turnout in recent times. And for the government to tell me, who would have been interested in that aspect, that recall aspect, that I now have the power of recall, is to disrespect my intelligence.
Exactly.
It is really
Thank
a
you, sir.
disrespect
That's
to the
very good,
nation
sir.
To tell them that they have set the mechanism for recall, when in fact it is very difficult. It is almost impossible.
But it
to
is
have
impossible.
recall.
It's impossible.
So you have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And that's the issue, Mr. Harris, because it really sort of made everybody in Trinidad say, yes, I'm fed up of that MP who I don't see. I want to get rid of that MP who's not performing. It takes me 3 months to get an appointment to see them. And therefore, you know what? We're going to recall them, when in itself it's a practical impossibility. We have another caller. Good evening, caller.
Hello?
Hello there.
Yes, ma'am. I just had to make a contribution based on this
Please do.
obnoxious situation that the country now faces. We're going through a very terrible period now. I understand the Indians' position. It is now started. It started quite some years ago where they're trying to build themselves into a so holistic community and trying to govern. One of the greatest measures that they use is the process of Hinduism, using the religion to build. And if we look at India as an example, based on the Hinduism there and the way how their community is structured based on the Hinduism, it's something they're trying to fashion here that's going to bring about very, very, very disbelief and very grave consequences in the future, especially among their own. Once you try to form that, which Gandhi got himself killed for that same situation, that is why they went and formed Pakistan, because those people didn't want it to be in the Shudras, which was the lowest caste system that Gandhi was trying to get them involved in as an attempt to quell the problems that they were facing. And when those people left and went and formed Pakistan and came back asking for help, financial help, it was denied. And as a result, it caused us death. Many people believe that Gandhi was this peaceful one and one. Not that. They were trying to get who.
So, thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. We had a little problem
Yes.
with the audio. It was a little bit difficult. Perhaps I think what he was talking about, sir, is that we're in Trinidad, we have a racial divide. I think he was talking about religious divide of sorts, and I wasn't too sure, but thank you, caller. As always, when we're having a great time runs out on us. So, sir, it was just a pleasure having you here, but I would love some closing words from you. I'd like, and I'm sure Trinidad and Tobago would like to hear from you so that we learn from your expertise. Tell me, Mr. Harris, what in your view would you say is the way forward?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I don't know. You are the lawyer. I don't know if the new provisions of the Constitution can be challenged in the courts to verify their constitutionality without there having been an election, so that there is an issue that the court can. Yes. If that is not possible, then I think that the country really has to make up its mind that we cannot continue like this. And I, for one, am ready to do whatever is necessary to throw this bunch out. Because I have never been, like the caller earlier, UNC or PNM. Everybody knows I'm a Tapia man from the time I was a little boy. But you have reached a stage where, I mean, this government really has no shame, no honor, no principle.
And therefore, we must, and hopefully we can do it together, and the people of Trinidad can do it as a nation, move forward without tribal, racial voting. Thank you, sir.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you very
my
much.
dear.
Thank you so much, callers. Thank you so much, viewers. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.